I'm Brady Armstrong. Many of you saw the YouTube short where I asked the public to guess what happened to create this scar on my face. If you haven't, go back and watch. It's less than a minute long. It's a great social experiment. I'll post a link in the description. But stick around right now, because in a minute I'm going to finally reveal the big mysterious answer. That short video, which posted not long ago, has received several thousand views. People have watched, they've wondered, and speculated. I'm excited to say one person actually did guess it right, and I'm going to give them credit right here for doing so. But look at this. Cancer, tumor, burns, smallpox, child abuse. I mean, the list of guesses goes on. Like I said, this was a social experiment. I wanted to shed light on the topic of body image by demonstrating on a large scale that it's normal to look different and to be disfigured from trauma, even in today's world. You can still have confidence in yourself, you can achieve high goals, you can do great things and have a fantastic life no matter what you've been through or what you look like. At Survivor Academy, this is what we do. We help people learn resilience no matter what happens. One of the first steps is having the ability to tell your story. I've been doing this for over 30 years. As you saw, I grew up this way, but today I'm going to share my story with you. Actually, let's pull up a news clip from 1992 to finally reveal the answer.
Of News 8.
It started out as a simple case of chickenpox, but 9 weeks of hospitalization later, a Valley Center 6-year-old is now out of the woods. As News 8's Jody Hammond reports, the fight for Brady Armstrong's life has been a costly one.
That's right, it was a rare and famous case of chickenpox. Catherine Davis, you guessed it right. But hang on, chickenpox isn't rare, right? I mean, everybody used to get it, including perhaps members of your own family, your parents and grandparents. That is to say, most everyone did prior to 1995 when the vaccine was introduced in the United States. According to the Centers for Disease Control, chickenpox used to be very common in the United States. In the early 1990s, more than 4 million people got chickenpox. Up to 13,000 were hospitalized, and up to 150 died each year. During the first 25 years of the chickenpox vaccination program, the vaccine has prevented an estimated 91 million cases, 238,000 hospitalizations, and 2,000 deaths. You might say I'm a pretty suitable poster child for that vaccine. Chickenpox covered my entire body. I'm told over 90% covered. There basically wasn't an area left unscathed. Not only was it on the outside, listen to what my amazing doctor had to say about it.
And ordinarily, chickenpox doesn't cause serious illness in children, but his was really out of control, one of the worst cases of chickenpox we'd ever seen, and it settled in his lungs.
Wait, what did he say?
And it settled in his lungs.
It settled in my lungs. Okay, so now we reach a turning point of this story. The scar you see on my face is just a hint of what happened. So when I'm asked what it's from, I'm normally like, well, how much time do you have? Because there's an entire history here underneath. You might say this scar is like the iceberg analogy. The scar on the surface is visible, yet the background of what happened is much more profound. The chickenpox virus, which settled in my lungs, caused pneumonia. That progressed into a highly deadly lung disease called acute respiratory distress syndrome. My lungs, which are supposed to be full of air, filled up with fluid, making breathing literally impossible. I was placed on a respirator for 8 weeks, in a coma, and had 11 chest tubes coming out of my lungs to drain the fluid inside them. In all, I was hospitalized for 2.5 months. This all happened during my kindergarten year. Eventually I went home, but remained on oxygen up to 2nd grade. I carried an oxygen tank around with me everywhere, and even nicknamed him R2-D2. After a lot of respiratory therapy, with time, I was able to breathe again on my own. When I was approaching 10 years old, it became clear that my self-esteem was plummeting quickly. I was not accepting the facial scars and being permanently disfigured. Honestly, I was downright miserable with my outward appearance. I asked and begged for a solution. My parents were sympathetic, and together we decided to explore the option of having a skin graft done. That operation was relatively simple. The main scar on my face was surgically removed, and fresh, healthy skin was taken from behind my ears and relocated to the surface of my face. That procedure went incredibly smooth. As a child, I believed I had legitimate reason to think my disfigurement issue was gone for good. To my disappointment, it was not. The keloid scar you see today is not chickenpox. It is the outcome of the body's way of healing, and the final result from that skin graft operation. As I matured, I learned to succumb to my facial difference and to accept it as part of who I am. With time, I even learned to embrace it and to find value in it. That process was not easy. It was arduous and torturous. It took years, but ultimately it was totally worth it. I am who I am inside and out because of this experience. I ceased the effort to change who I am. Instead, I learned to love the survivor I always was. For the next 28 years, I enjoyed a decently healthy life. I faced emotional and social problems at every degree and at every turn, but as far as physical health was concerned, I was in fair shape overall. Or so I thought. Actually, I was oblivious to the fact that on the inside of my chest, there was a significant problem quietly waiting in dormancy. And like a ticking bomb, that problem would later awaken and come back to haunt me. Remember the doctor saying chickenpox settled in my lungs? Well, what I didn't know for nearly 3 decades is these lungs of mine are actually lined with scar tissue, similar to the scars you see on my face. That has made them weak and vulnerable to disease. I didn't find that out until the year 2019, when it was almost too late. Fast forward from age 6 to age 34, when I caught a winter flu. At first, it seemed like a typical flu, nothing special, fever, headache, cough, that sort of thing. I had flus as commonly as anybody else does. But in the winter of 2019, that flu was different. A little added side problem came out of nowhere. My gallbladder randomly went bad. And so bad, in fact, that I got sepsis from it. Now, if you don't know what sepsis is, go ahead and Google it. In short, it's blood poisoning and a collapse of the body's immune system, a horrifying ordeal. Sepsis went through my body, found my lungs to be the weakest point, and attacked them with aggression. Within days, I was right back to where I was as a kindergartner, in a hospital, in a coma, on a respirator with pneumonia and acute respiratory distress syndrome. Fortunately, I had been down that road before and kind of had an idea how to navigate respiratory therapy after modern medicine has done its job. My hospital stay that time lasted only 1 month. With renewed motivation and purpose, now in my 30s, I learned to eat and walk on my own once again. This time I went home without the oxygen tank. What happened to my face, you ask? Well, it is a story with multiple layers. My scars and disfigurements are results and reminders of these unpleasant moments in my life, but they are also much more than that. They are symbols of some of life's greatest lessons. They represent suffering, pain, and everything that's different about me, sure, but I do not count them as flaws or defects. My scars make me complete, for they are composed of a priceless story. My story. They are emblems of my past, and they are tokens of my experience. They stand for and represent all that I've been capable of overcoming. Whatever personal struggles you are facing and hoping to overcome, I hope this message somehow finds you and in some way encourages you to keep fighting.